would you think of a fella joining the Navy a little bit too young? Well, this was in March. I turned 15 in January. He said, how much too young are you? And I said, a couple of years. He said, how old are you? And I told him 15. He said, well, we talked a little bit. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, I'll sign that I saw your birth certificate. If you can get your parents to sign, and you will never squeal on me. He said, you could get me in a lot of trouble. I promised him I wouldn't, but I had a little trouble talking them at home to sign the papers, and they did. So I went in the Navy in March of 1943. Well, I went to Bainbridge, Maryland, and through boot camp. One thing made me stay. Excuse me for shaking. I hadn't had no breakfast, and I hadn't done this before either. But there was two fellas up there in boot camp. They'd stick you on guard duty just here and there. You had 8 weeks of boot camp. They had me in this building where there's a lot of people typing and going on, and there's two fellas, and one of them was from out in Waynesville. We called him Country Morgan, and him and another fellow was crying. They wanted out of the Navy, and they were 16. And I thought, well, if I have to cry to get out of here, I'll stay from here from now on. Excuse me for shaking. But I stayed with them, and when I finished boot camp, I came home and I went back to Washington, D.C. And there I stayed just a little while. And one of the things happened to me there, I was just scared to death, and they put me on guard duty one morning to get up and ring the bell at 6 o'clock to get everybody up. And I watched that clock for 4 hours, and I went out there at 5 o'clock and rang that bell. And got everybody up an hour early. And I had to go to the captain about it. And he asked me what happened. He could tell I was scared to death. I was probably shaking more than I am now. So he said, well, son, you go on. He said, it didn't hurt us to get up an hour early, so he turned me loose. But anyhow, I went from Washington, D.C. to Long Island, New York. And I was in fibs then. And that's where a lot of people think, like this gentleman here, he don't think it, he knows it. People back then thought if you was in the Navy, you were supposed to be on a ship. Therefore, you're supposed to be on a plane. It's completely different. I was in the infib crew, and I trained in Long Island, New York under Marines. I think we trained 8 weeks up there, and we left Pier 90.